Jake Martinez stared at his laptop screen and felt his stomach drop. The rent was due in 2 weeks and he was $300 short. His part-time job at the campus bookstore barely covered his food and gas money. Without a roommate, he would have to move back home with his parents and give up on finishing his engineering degree. He posted another ad online with the title, "Clean, Quiet Roommate Wanted," and hoped for the best. Most responses came from people who wanted to party all night or turn the living room into a gaming den. Jake needed someone who would help pay the bills and leave him alone to study. 3 days later, a girl named Luna sent him a simple message. She wrote that she was an international student looking for a quiet place to live. She could pay her half of the rent on time every month and preferred to keep to herself. Jake replied immediately and asked if she wanted to see the apartment. Luna arrived exactly on time the next evening. Jake opened the door and saw a thin girl with very pale skin and the most unusual eyes he had ever seen. They were bright silver, almost like mirrors, and seemed to catch light in a strange way. She wore a long black coat even though the weather was warm, and black gloves covered her hands. "Hello," she said in a soft voice that had a slight accent Jake could not place. "I am Luna." Jake showed her around the small 2-bedroom apartment. Luna nodded at everything but did not ask many questions. She looked at the kitchen, the bathroom, and the bedroom that would be hers. When they stood in the living room, she seemed to study the electrical outlets and the Wi-Fi router with unusual interest. "The room is perfect," she said. "When can I move in?" Jake was surprised by how quickly she decided. Most people asked about utilities, parking, or house rules. Luna just pulled out an envelope full of cash and handed him the first month's rent plus deposit. "Is tomorrow too soon?" she asked. Jake could not believe his luck. "Tomorrow is great." Luna moved in with only 2 small suitcases and a large metal case that looked like it belonged in a science lab. She was incredibly neat and seemed to make no noise at all. Jake would forget she was even there until he saw her gloves drying by the sink or noticed that someone had organized the kitchen cabinets. She kept strange hours. Jake never heard her go to bed, but sometimes late at night he would hear soft humming coming from her room. It was not like any song he knew. The sound was almost electronic, with tones that seemed to vibrate through the walls. When he asked her about it the next morning, Luna just said she liked to meditate before sleeping. Luna never cooked or ate when Jake was around. She said she preferred to eat at odd hours because of her different schedule. The refrigerator stayed nearly empty except for Jake's food and a few sealed containers that Luna kept on the bottom shelf. The containers were always cold to the touch, even when the refrigerator was not running well. What amazed Jake most was how Luna seemed to fix things without being asked. His old laptop had been running slowly for months, but after Luna moved in, it worked like new. The Wi-Fi signal became stronger throughout the apartment. Even the temperamental air conditioning started working better. When Jake mentioned these improvements, Luna just smiled and said she was good with technology. Luna went out every night around 10 o'clock and returned before dawn. She said she preferred to shop and run errands when the stores were less crowded. Jake found this odd since most places were closed at night, but Luna always seemed to find what she needed. One evening, Jake tried to make conversation while they both happened to be in the kitchen. "What are you studying?" he asked. Luna paused. For a long moment. "Environmental systems," she said finally. "How different environments affect living beings." "That sounds interesting. Which professor do you have?" Luna turned away and busied herself with organizing items in a cabinet. "I do mostly independent research," she said. "I work with data from many sources." Jake noticed that Luna never mentioned friends, family, or professors. She received mail addressed to several different versions of her name, which she explained by saying her legal name was difficult for Americans to pronounce correctly. The mail always came in plain envelopes with no return addresses. Despite her mysterious habits, Luna was the perfect roommate. She paid her share of everything on time, kept the apartment spotless, and never bothered Jake while he studied. She even seemed to know when he was stressed about exams because the apartment would be extra quiet during those times. The only thing that sometimes bothered Jake was how cold Luna kept her room. Even in summer, she ran a small air conditioning unit constantly. Cold air would seep under her door and make the hallway chilly. When Jake mentioned the high electric bill, Luna immediately offered to pay the extra cost. Luna had an odd effect on electronics throughout the apartment. Jake's phone battery lasted much longer than usual. The internet connection became so reliable that Jake never experienced the lag and disconnections that plagued other students in nearby apartments. Even the building's elevator seemed to work more smoothly when Luna was around. One night Jake woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen for water. As he passed Luna's room, he noticed a faint blue glow coming from under her door. He stood there for a moment, wondering if she had fallen asleep, with her computer on, but the light seemed to pulse gently like a heartbeat. Jake decided not to disturb her. Luna valued her privacy, and she had been nothing but considerate to him. Whatever she did in her room was her business as long as she continued to be a good roommate. As weeks passed, Jake began to appreciate having Luna around more than he had expected. The apartment felt calmer and more comfortable with her there. He slept better, his grades improved, and he even felt healthier. Jake attributed these changes to having less financial stress, but sometimes he wondered if there was something else about Luna's presence that made everything in his life work a little bit better. Jake first noticed something truly strange about Luna on a Tuesday morning when his alarm clock failed to go off. He woke up in a panic, thinking he had overslept for his most important exam of the semester. When he grabbed his phone to check the time, he discovered it was exactly 7 in the morning, the precise time he needed to wake up. His alarm clock sat silent on the nightstand, its display completely dark. Jake pressed several buttons, but nothing happened. The clock appeared to be completely dead. He grabbed his backup alarm from a drawer and found that it was also dead, despite having worked perfectly the night before. Just as Jake started to worry about being late, both clocks suddenly flickered back to life. The displays showed the correct time and both alarms began functioning normally. Jake stared at them in confusion, then shrugged and got ready for his exam. During breakfast, Jake mentioned the incident to Luna. She was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, wearing her usual long sleeves and gloves despite the warm weather. "Electronics can be unpredictable," Luna said softly. "Sometimes they need time to reset themselves." Jake found her explanation unsatisfying, but he had more pressing concerns. His exam went well, better than he had expected. In fact, Jake felt unusually sharp and focused all day. His mind seemed clearer and his memory worked better than normal. Over the following weeks, Jake began to notice a pattern. Whenever he studied near Luna or in areas where she spent time, his concentration improved dramatically. He could absorb information faster and remember details with unusual clarity. Jake initially credited this to reduce stress about money, but the effect seemed too pronounced to be explained by financial relief alone. The apartment's electronics continued to behave strangely. Jake's ancient laptop, which had barely functioned when Luna moved in, now ran complex engineering software without any lag. The internet speed had increased so much that Jake could download entire textbooks in minutes. His phone, which used to die halfway through the day, now held its charge for nearly 48 hours. Jake ran several speed tests and discovered their internet connection was somehow running at nearly 10 times the speed they were paying for. When he called the service provider to ask about the improvement, the technician insisted their equipment showed normal speeds for Jake's plan. One evening, Jake borrowed a friend's device to test their Wi-Fi and found that it performed normally on the borrowed equipment. The enhanced performance only affected electronics that Jake used regularly or that stayed in the apartment for extended periods. Luna's nocturnal habits became more pronounced. Jake never saw her sleep, and he began to suspect she might have a serious sleep disorder. Sometimes he would get up for water at 2 or 3 in the morning and see light under Luna's door. When he listened carefully, he could hear faint electronic sounds, like computers running complex calculations. Jake worried about Luna's health and tried to discuss it with her. "Are you getting enough rest?" he asked one morning. "I hear you moving around pretty late." Luna smiled, but her expression seemed tired. "I do not need as much sleep as most people," she said. "My schedule is different because of my research." "What kind of research keeps you up all night?" Luna hesitated. I analyze data from remote sensors, she said. The information comes in during off-peak hours when there is less interference. Jake accepted this explanation, though it sounded vague. Many graduate students kept odd hours, and Luna's work might involve international data collection that required unusual scheduling. The most unsettling incident happened on a Thursday afternoon when Jake came home early from a canceled class. As he approached their apartment door, he heard voices inside. One voice was Luna's soft tone, but she seemed to be having a conversation with someone else. Jake listened carefully but could not make out words. The other voice had an unusual quality, almost like it was coming through a radio or electronic device. Jake knocked on the door and called out that he was home. The voices stopped immediately. When Jake entered the apartment, he found Luna sitting alone in the living room, reading a book. There was no sign of another person, no phone or computer that might have been used for a call. Was someone here? Jake asked. Luna looked up from her book with what seemed like genuine confusion. No, she said. I have been reading since you left this morning. Jake searched the apartment but found no evidence of a visitor. All the windows were locked and there was only one entrance. He began to wonder if he had imagined the second voice or if sound from a neighboring apartment had somehow carried through the walls. That weekend, Jake's engineering study group came over to work on a project. The group included 5 students with various laptops and devices. Within an hour of starting, everyone commented on how well their equipment was performing. Your Wi-Fi is incredible, said Pete, Jake's lab partner. My laptop is running like it's brand new. Same here, added Carolyn, a computer science major. I have never seen processing speeds like this outside the campus lab. Jake felt proud of their internet setup, though he could not explain why it worked so well. Luna had stayed in her room during the study session, but Jake noticed that everyone's productivity increased dramatically. The group finished their project in half the expected time and produced work that exceeded all their expectations. After the study group left, Jake found Luna in the kitchen making tea. My friends were really impressed with our internet, he said. Whatever you did to optimize it is working great. Luna's hand paused while pouring hot water. I did not change anything, she said. Perhaps the service provider upgraded the equipment in this area. Jake knew this was not true because he had checked with neighbors, but he did not want to press the issue. Luna had been nothing but helpful, and Jake did not want to make her uncomfortable with too many questions. The strangest incident occurred during a severe thunderstorm the following Tuesday. The power went out across the entire neighborhood around 9 in the evening. Jake was studying by candlelight when he noticed that his laptop was still running. Despite being unplugged from the wall, the laptop's battery indicator showed it was fully charged and actually gaining power. Jake stared at the screen in disbelief. According to the display, his laptop was somehow drawing energy from an unknown source. Jake looked around the dark apartment and realized he could see better than he should have been able to with just candles. There seemed to be a very faint glow coming from the direction of Luna's room, barely visible but definitely present. He crept down the hallway and saw thin lines of blue light seeping under Luna's door. The light pulsed gently, growing brighter and dimmer in a rhythm that reminded Jake of breathing. He stood there for several minutes, wondering what Luna could possibly be doing in her room that would create such an effect. Jake raised his hand to knock but hesitated. Luna had always respected his privacy and space. He decided to return to his room and ask her about it in the morning. When Jake woke up the next day, the power was back on and everything seemed normal. His laptop showed a full battery charge even though it had been running all night. Jake checked the local news and learned that most of the neighborhood had been without electricity for over 6 hours, but somehow their apartment had maintained partial power throughout the outage. The storm that changed everything came on a Friday evening in late October. Jake had been living with Luna for almost 3 months, and their routine had settled into a comfortable pattern. He studied while she maintained her mysterious nocturnal schedule, and both of them respected each other's need for space and quiet. Weather reports had warned about severe thunderstorms, but Jake was not prepared for the intensity of what arrived. Rain hammered against the windows with tremendous force, and lightning flashed so frequently that it seemed like daylight outside. The wind howled around their building with a sound Jake had never heard before. Around 8 o'clock, the power went out. This time it was different from the previous outage. Jake could tell immediately that this was a major blackout affecting a much larger area. Through the window he could see that the entire city had gone dark, even the emergency lighting in. Nearby buildings had failed. Jake fumbled around his room looking for the flashlight he kept in his desk drawer. His phone's flashlight provided some illumination, but the battery was already low and he wanted to conserve it. As he searched through his desk, Jake heard Luna moving around in the living room. "Luna," he called out, "are you okay out there?" "I am fine," came her soft reply. "Stay in your room until the storm passes." Something in Luna's tone made Jake pause. She sounded different, more urgent than usual. There was also an odd quality to her voice, as if she was speaking from farther away than the living room. Jake continued searching for his flashlight but could not find it anywhere. His phone battery dropped to 10%, then 5%. Just as the screen was about to go dark, Jake saw a faint glow coming from under his bedroom door. The light was soft and blue, similar to what he had seen before, but much brighter. It pulsed gently and seemed to move, as if the source was shifting position in the living room. Jake had never seen anything like it outside of science fiction movies. Curiosity overcame his caution. Jake quietly opened his bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. The blue glow was much more intense now, bright enough to illuminate the entire apartment. The light was definitely coming from the living room, and it was moving in patterns that seemed almost like a dance. Jake crept down the hallway, staying close to the wall. As he got closer to the living room, he could hear a soft humming sound, similar to what he had heard from Luna's room, but much louder. The sound seemed to vibrate through his bones and made the air itself feel different, charged with energy. When Jake reached the corner where the hallway opened into the living room, he stopped and carefully peered around the edge. What he saw made him forget how to breathe. Luna stood in the center of the room, but she was no longer the pale, quiet girl he knew. Her human appearance had completely disappeared, replaced by something that seemed to be made of living light and energy. Her true form was tall and graceful, with limbs that appeared to be constructed from flowing blue and white energy. Her skin, if it could be called skin, was translucent and glowed with soft radiance. Geometric patterns moved across her surface like circuits made of light, pulsing and shifting in complex designs. Most striking were her eyes, which were no longer silver mirrors but large, multifaceted organs that seemed to see in directions Jake could not comprehend. Additional appendages that looked like combinations of arms and energy tendrils extended from her back and sides, each one connected to different parts of the apartment. One appendage was inserted directly into the electrical panel on the wall. Another seemed to be interfacing with the Wi-Fi router, while a third was connected to something Jake could not identify. Luna was somehow drawing power from the building's systems and redistributing it throughout their apartment. Jake watched in amazement as Luna's energy tendrils worked with precise, fluid movements. She was not just restoring power to their unit. She was stabilizing the entire building's electrical system. Lights flickered on in apartments above and below them, and Jake could hear elevators starting to function again. The most incredible part was Luna's expression. Her alien features showed intense concentration, but also something that looked like concern or even affection. She was working hard to maintain power and safety for everyone in the building. Not just herself. Jake stood frozen, trying to process what he was seeing. Every strange incident from the past 3 months suddenly made perfect sense. Luna was not human. She was something else entirely, something that could manipulate energy and electronics in ways that seemed impossible. As Jake watched, Luna began to shift back toward her human appearance. The energy tendrils retracted, the glowing patterns faded, and her translucent skin became pale and solid again. Within seconds, she looked like the quiet international student he had known for months, but Jake had gasped involuntarily when he first saw her transformation, and the sound carried across the room. Luna spun around and saw him standing in the hallway entrance. Her silver eyes went wide with what looked like panic and fear. For a long moment, neither of them moved or spoke. Jake could see Luna calculating whether to run, whether to try to explain, or whether to somehow make him forget what he had witnessed. Her whole body was tense, ready for flight. Jake's first thought was not about his own safety or the impossibility of what he had seen. Instead, he found himself worried about Luna. She looked terrified and vulnerable in a way he had never seen before. "Are you hurt?" Jake asked quietly. "Do you need help?" Luna stared at him in apparent disbelief. "You are not afraid?" Jake considered this question seriously. He was definitely shocked and confused, but afraid was not the right word. "Should I be afraid?" he asked. Luna's expression shifted from panic to something that might have been relief, though it was hard to read her alien features clearly. "Most humans would be," she said. "Well, I am not most humans," Jake replied, "and you have been nothing but kind to me. Why would I be afraid of someone who just restored power to our entire building during a storm?" Luna seemed to deflate slightly, as if she had been holding tension in her body for a very long time. "You were not supposed to see," she said. "I have been very careful." Jake stepped into the living room, moving slowly so Luna would not feel threatened. "How long have you been here?" he asked. "I mean, on Earth." 8 months, Luna said after a moment. "My ship was damaged and I have been stranded while making repairs." Jake nodded as if this was a perfectly normal explanation. "Is your ship why you go out every night?" "Yes, it is hidden in a remote location outside the city. I have been slowly rebuilding the damaged systems using materials and technology from your world." Jake looked around their apartment with new understanding. "And you have been using our place as a base while you work on it?" Luna nodded, still watching Jake carefully for signs of fear or rejection. "I needed somewhere safe to stay while I gathered resources and studied human society. I did not expect to remain here so long, and I certainly did not expect to care about the welfare of my human neighbors." Jake smiled despite the strangeness of the situation. "So you have been taking care of all of us while fixing your ship? That is actually pretty impressive." Luna tilted her head in a gesture that was somehow both alien and familiar. "You are taking this remarkably well for a human." "Maybe," Jake said. "But I think you might be surprised by how adaptable humans can be when someone treats us with kindness." After the initial shock wore off, Jake found himself fascinated rather than frightened. Luna had resumed her human appearance, but now that he knew the truth, Jake could see subtle signs of her real nature. The way lights seemed to bend slightly around her, how electronics hummed more quietly in her presence, and the fact that she never seemed to cast shadows quite right. "So what are you exactly?" Jake asked as they sat on the couch. The storm continued outside, but their apartment remained warm and well lit, despite the citywide blackout. Luna was quiet for a long moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. "My people are called ethereals," she said finally. "We are energy-based beings who evolved on a world very different from Earth. We can manipulate electromagnetic fields and interface directly with electronic systems." Jake nodded, trying to absorb this information. "And you came here to study us?" "Not exactly," Luna said. "I was part of a small advanced team sent to observe human development and assess whether your species is ready for contact with the galactic community. My ship was caught in a solar storm and crashed in your desert. I had been stranded here while attempting repairs." Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "There are others like you out there." "Many," Luna confirmed. "The galaxy contains thousands of intelligent species. Most belong to a loose confederation that shares technology and resources. But contact with new species is handled very carefully." "Why carefully?" Luna seemed to consider her words. "Some species are not ready for advanced technology. They use it for warfare or self-destruction rather than advancement. Others are too aggressive and pose a threat to peaceful civilizations." Jake understood the implication. "And humans might be too aggressive?" "That is what my people are trying to determine," Luna said. "Human society shows remarkable potential, but also concerning tendencies toward violence and territorial behavior. Jake wanted to argue, but he knew human history was full of wars and conflicts. What would it take for us to be accepted? Luna smiled, and even in her human form there was something otherworldly about the expression. That is exactly the kind of question that gives me hope for your species. Over the following hours, as the storm gradually passed, Luna explained more about her situation. Her ship had been badly damaged when it crashed, and she had been slowly cannibalizing human technology to make repairs. The process was complicated, because ethereal technology was based on energy manipulation, while human technology relied on more primitive electrical systems. Your electronics are crude but surprisingly adaptable, Luna said. I have been impressed by how much functionality humans achieve with such basic components. Jake felt oddly proud of this backhanded compliment. We are good at making things work with whatever we have available. Yes, Luna agreed. That trait could be very valuable to the galactic community. Jake learned that Luna had been protecting their apartment building in ways he had never imagined. Her presence filtered out harmful radiation from space, stabilized electrical systems during surges, and even prevented accidents by detecting dangerous situations before they developed. Last month, when you went down to the basement to check the washing machines, Luna said, there was a gas leak from a broken pipe. I detected it and created a small electromagnetic field to disperse the gas before you arrived. Jake remembered that trip to the basement. He had planned to use the laundry room but had felt inexplicably uneasy and decided to wait until the next day. You made me feel like I should leave? I influenced the electrical field around your nervous system slightly, Luna explained. Enough to make you uncomfortable, but not enough to cause harm. The leak was repaired the next morning before anyone was hurt. Jake realized there had probably been dozens of similar incidents he knew nothing about. You have been keeping all of us safe, Luna nodded. I did not intend to become attached to human welfare when I first arrived, but living among you has changed my perspective significantly. How so? Luna was quiet for a moment, her silver eyes reflecting the soft light in the room. My people value logic and efficiency above all else. We make decisions based on careful analysis of data and probable outcomes, but humans operate differently. Jake waited for her to continue. You make choices based on emotion and intuition. As much as logic, Luna said. This should make you less effective, but often it makes you more creative and adaptable. You solve problems in ways my people would never consider. Jake thought about his engineering studies and how often the best solutions came from unexpected approaches. Can you give me an example? Luna gestured toward Jake's laptop. When you were working on your bridge design project last week, you were stuck on a structural problem. Instead of calculating optimal load distributions like an ethereal would, you thought about how tree branches bend in wind and applied that concept to your design. Jake remembered that breakthrough moment. It worked, though. It worked brilliantly, Luna agreed. And it resulted in a design that is both stronger and more elegant than a purely mathematical approach would have produced. My people would have spent weeks running calculations to reach the same conclusion. Jake began to understand what Luna was saying. So humans think differently than other species? Very differently, Luna confirmed. Most advanced species develop along similar paths of pure logic and technological advancement. But humans have maintained emotional decision-making and intuitive problem-solving even as your technology has advanced. Is that good or bad? Luna smiled again. I believe it is very good. But convincing my people of that will be difficult. Jake felt a weight of responsibility settling on him. What happens if they decide we are not ready for contact? Luna's expression became serious. Earth would be quarantined. No contact would be permitted until humans either advanced sufficiently or ... She did not finish the sentence. Or what? Or until you destroy yourselves, which many species eventually do. Jake felt a chill. How long do we have? Luna was quiet for a long moment. There is a more immediate concern, she said finally. My people have detected an asteroid field that will threaten Earth in approximately 6 months. It is large enough to cause significant damage to your planet. Jake's engineering mind immediately began calculating trajectories and impact scenarios. How significant? Potential extinction level event if multiple large asteroids reach the surface. Jake stared at her. And your people could help us deal with it? Yes, but only if they determine humans are worthy of assistance. Otherwise, they will consider it a natural test of your species' survival capabilities. Jake understood now why Luna looked so worried. So we need to prove ourselves in the next 6 months. We need to prove that humans can handle advanced technology responsibly and work cooperatively with other species, Luna said. The asteroid threat actually provides an opportunity to demonstrate these qualities. Jake stood up and began pacing, his mind racing with possibilities. What if we work together? You help me understand the technology needed to address the asteroids, and I help you repair your ship. We show your people that humans and ethereals can be effective partners. Luna watched him pace with interest. That is precisely the kind of thinking that gives me hope for humanity. Is it possible? Can we actually build something that would work against these asteroids? Luna considered this carefully. With my knowledge of energy manipulation and your understanding of practical engineering, it might be possible to create a defense system. But it would require combining our technologies in ways that have never been attempted. Jake stopped pacing and looked at Luna with determination. Then that is what we are going to do. Luna stood as well, and for a moment her human disguise flickered slightly, revealing hints of the energy being beneath. You would risk everything to save your species, even though you have only known about the threat for a few hours? Jake thought about his family, his friends, everyone he had ever cared about. Then he thought about all the humans he did not know, but who deserved a chance to live and grow and maybe someday reach for the stars themselves. Yes, he said simply. That is what humans do. Working with Luna transformed Jake's understanding of both engineering and the universe itself. They spent the next several weeks developing plans for a planetary defense system that combined ethereal energy manipulation technology with human manufacturing capabilities and problem-solving approaches. Luna's ship was hidden in a canyon 50 miles outside the city, disguised to look like a geological formation. When Jake first saw it, he was amazed by its organic design. The craft seemed to grow from the rock itself, all flowing curves and surfaces that shifted subtly in the light. Ethereal technology is based on energy patterns found in nature, Luna explained as they worked inside the ship's damaged control center. We design our tools to work with universal forces rather than against them. Jake studied the ship's systems with fascination. Where human technology used discrete components connected by wires and circuits, ethereal technology flowed like water through crystalline structures that could be reconfigured instantly. The entire ship was essentially one massive, adaptable computer. This is incredible, Jake said, running his hands over a control surface that responded to his touch by displaying information in patterns of light. But I can see why it is hard to repair with human components. Luna nodded. I have been trying to replace damaged energy conduits with copper wiring and electronic processors. It works, but the efficiency is very poor. Jake examined the damaged sections and began to see the problem differently. What if we do not try to replace your technology with ours? What if we create a hybrid system that uses both? Luna tilted her head in that curious gesture Jake had learned to recognize. How would that work? Jake pulled out his tablet and began sketching. Your energy conduits are like rivers carrying water. Our electronics are like dams and turbines that can control and redirect the flow. Instead of replacing the rivers with artificial channels, we use our technology to manage the energy more precisely. Luna studied Jake's drawings with growing excitement. That could actually work. Your crude electronics might provide the stability and control that pure energy systems lack. They spent days experimenting with hybrid connections. Jake's practical approach to engineering complemented Luna's theoretical knowledge perfectly. When Luna's elegant solutions proved too complex to implement quickly, Jake found simpler alternatives. When Jake's direct methods hit limitations, Luna showed him how to work around physical constraints using energy manipulation. The breakthrough came when they successfully integrated Jake's laptop with the ship's navigation system? The laptop provided processing power and logical structure while the ship's systems provided massive computational capacity and energy control. "Look at this," Jake said, staring at the display screen in amazement. The laptop was running calculations at speeds that should have been impossible, while simultaneously controlling energy flows throughout the ship. Luna watched the hybrid system with wonder. "Your technology is teaching my technology to be more structured, while my technology is teaching yours to be more adaptive." Jake grinned. It is like they are learning from each other. As they continued working together, Luna began to understand that Jake's approach to problems was fundamentally different from ethereal thinking, where her people would analyze a situation exhaustively before acting. Jake would try multiple solutions simultaneously and adapt based on results. "Your species does not fear failure the way mine does," Luna observed after watching Jake test. "A dozen different connection methods in an hour." "Failure is just information," Jake replied, adjusting another component. "Each thing that does not work tells us something about what might work." Luna realized this attitude was the key to human innovation. Ethereals spent so much time avoiding mistakes that they sometimes missed opportunities for unexpected discoveries. Humans embraced the possibility of failure as part of the learning process. The asteroid threat became more urgent as Luna's instruments detected changes in the field's trajectory. The asteroids were moving faster than originally calculated and would arrive in 4 months rather than 6. "We need to contact my people immediately," Luna said. "There is not enough time to complete the defense system before the asteroids arrive." Jake disagreed. "What if we do not try to stop all the asteroids? What if we focus on deflecting just the most dangerous ones?" Luna ran calculations on her ship's systems. Even deflecting a few large asteroids would require more power than we can generate with our current setup. Jake studied the power requirements and had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "What if we do not generate the power ourselves? What if we tap into Earth's electromagnetic field?" Luna stared at him. "That is theoretically possible, but incredibly dangerous. If the connection is not perfectly controlled, it could disrupt Earth's magnetic field and cause massive climate changes." Jake nodded. "But if we do nothing, the asteroids will definitely cause massive climate changes. Sometimes you have to take a calculated risk." Luna began to understand that this willingness to take necessary risks was another uniquely human trait. Ethereals would never attempt something so dangerous without years of testing and analysis. But humans could evaluate risks quickly and act. When the potential benefits outweighed the dangers, they spent the next week designing a system that could safely tap into Earth's magnetic field and redirect that energy toward deflecting asteroids. The design required precise timing, careful calibration, and a level of cooperation between human and ethereal technology that had never been attempted. Finally, Luna made the decision to contact her people. Using the ship,